Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And today's video, it's a special one. I'm going to be introducing a new card game to the channel called Alpha Clash. I'm going to talk about the card game, talk about why I really enjoy it, why I'm super excited to talk to you all about it, and also kind of give my perspective as a Flesh and Blood player, because I think that this game really lends itself to a lot of the mechanics that what makes people like Flesh and Blood. So for most people that watch my content, I'm going to kind of speak in that tone as well and just kind of give you like a little background on the game. We're going to be doing a bunch of different videos on this game. So this one will be more like wave tops, like why should you be interested in this game, both as a card game player in general and as a Flesh and Blood player. So we'll get right into it. If you like this type of content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by. It's a very unique video for the channel. It's this primary Flesh and Blood channel, but we're doing something different today. If you're a long-standing supporter, I implore you, watch 10 to 15 minutes of this video. Let me know what your thoughts are. Whether you like it or don't like it, totally fine. Just leave a comment down below. I'd love to get your thoughts. So one disclaimer I have is this is not sponsored by Alpha Clash. I'm not getting paid to do this video. There's no advertisement. They might be sending me some product just to check out, but it's not with like the expectation of reviewing the game. It was really just like, hey, we heard you're interested. Like, we'd love to send you some stuff. And so we'll see what happens when that happens. But this is solely off my own volition, so don't think, there's any skewed opinions because of that. So I want to talk today. This video is going to come into like three parts. One is introducing the game, what it is, what it's about. Two is talking about like why I enjoy the game and why I want to bring it to the channel. And then three is, as mainly a Flesh and Blood player, why I think this is a very easy transition to this game. And if you're an Alpha Clash dev or member out there watching this, the reason I wanted to do that is because mainly my audience is Flesh and Blood, so I want them to be interested in it right away. So because of that, I'm trying to draw some similarities, which I think there are a lot. So Alpha Clash is, as you can see, a lore-driven, fast-paced, superhero-based TCG, and that is kind of goes into my first of 5 reasons. So basically, you are behind what is, and I'll bring their website back up in here in a second because it's super awesome. But basically, you pick a contender, or in Flesh and Blood, as we know, like a hero. You'll pick a contender, and that will be the baseline of your deck. In this game, there are 5 colors. There's blue, white, red, black, and green. Each color right now in set 1 has its own contender that it affiliates with, but I'm sure they're going to make more and more into the colors as time goes on. And what first drew me to this game as a Flesh and Blood player, and if you're out there as a Flesh and Blood player, is the contender that you align with, right? Flesh and Blood has it. My Hero Academia has it. Dragon Ball Super has it, where you're not affiliating just with an archetype. You're affiliating with a hero. You're affiliating with a story and and kind of like a feel, right? And I'm super excited about this. Right now, they have 5 contenders. They have Mean Streak, which is under blue. They have Magnate, which is under green. They have Torque, which is under red. Moxie, which is under black. And then Clarity, who is under white. So as you can see, the artwork is fantastic. I'm not going to go into each one of these heroes and like what they do, but they're all under a certain color. And each of them kind of has their own archetype, right? Like you do have Clarity, which is a lot about like opting and controlling your own deck and gaining life, similar to how white is in a lot of card games. Moxie is black, which is more of a weapons-based deck, like equipment. Torque is like every good red aggro deck. It's about dealing damage, but also it's a little bit about saying like, hey, if you deal certain damage to me, I'm going to deal it back to you. So you entice your opponent to play a certain way, which helps you. Magnate's more of, I would say, that the control deck, not really control, just defensive. He naturally gives a buff to his defensive cards. And then Mean Streak is more of like this cool streak counter system, where basically you put counters on your cards, and if they have counters on when they're defeated or when they do certain things, they get buffed abilities. So each has their own little archetype. As you can see in the bottom right of the card, they have certain, they're called affiliations in this game, but as Flesh and Blood players, you're going to know this as classes. So, which is another reason why I love this. So the first reason that drew me to this game is the contender, right? Or the feel and the lore. There's a whole bunch of lore to this game right now. If we go back to the website just for 2 seconds. This game was originally started on a graphic novel. So if I go to their products and I go to comic book, they have an entire graphic novel that plays into the lore of this game. And they're going to, I'm assuming, have the novel available for sale. It comes out next month. They had it on their Kickstarter, but they have a volume 1, like a whole entire just lore comic book that goes into this game, which is super cool, which that then lends to even more of like affiliating with these contenders and with these heroes. So like Mean Streak in the bottom right, that symbol, it looks like an A, symbolizes an alpha, right? So in these, I know I'm bouncing here for a second, but I just want to make sure you all understand it. If you go to the rule book and you scroll down, they eventually talk about the affiliations. They have a whole rule book. It's super awesome. It's in their Discord. Definitely check it out. It's a super long one, but they have affiliations here. So they have Alpha, Rogue, Alpha Hunter, Harbinger, Discarded, and Progenitor. And so like these are basically similar to classes in Flesh and Blood, like Mechanologist, Ninja, Warrior. Each of these have their own like archetype and their own feel to the deck, which is the second reason why I really, really enjoy the game. In the lore, your alphas are basically like these awakened super beings. Basically, this big event happened on Earth, like big explosion, which caused certain people to have awakened powers, which are alphas. Then you have rogues. I don't know as much about the rogues as I should, but I'm definitely looking more into the lore. They play into the story as well. You have alpha hunters, which is basically like mankind's answer to combating these super being alphas. Like Moxie, the weapons-based contender, is an alpha hunter. You then have harbingers, discarded, and progenitors, and they all play into the lore of the game. As a Flesh and Blood player, we all know lore is super, super important, right? And as a card game player, having lore is really cool. And I will say that the lore in this game rivals Flesh and Blood, in my opinion, already. It's very, very good. Hopefully they continue on it. But they did a Kickstarter. It was really successful. And so, you know, reason one why I really like this game is the contender system. Reason two is each color in each contender has its own feel, right? So like if you go to their website, which we'll talk about here even more in depth here in a second, their website's super awesome. They already have a full card list where you can go and click on any of the color types or even the affiliations and see all the cards. So like if we go to black for a second, which right now currently is Moxie, as you can see, they have like iconic alt art cards. All the cards are already a baseline in full border, full art cards. There's no like border to them, or no border, like full art cards, which is super awesome. They have like foils and iconic like alt arts and stuff like that. But as you can see, you see Moxie in a lot of these cards. Not all of them, but a good amount. And as you can see, they're all like weapons based, right? And they have a certain look and feel to them. And each color has this, right? As you can see, black already has very like military, very weapons based, right? Armor, equipment, things of that nature, right? And it kind of goes with Moxie's archetype of being armor. And then if you go to green, which is Magnate, which is a lot of superpowers, a lot of like, you know, villainous type stuff, you can see that his artwork for his type of deck really suits that. You see a lot of like superheroes, and you'll see other characters like Sonaro is one, which is other heroes that maybe not have been introduced as contenders yet, but you could see in the future. But as you can see, like each color has its own look and feel, and the artwork is just what drew me to this game first was the artwork. It's really, really good. But basically, you take your contender that starts with 30 health, and the goal of the game is to get the other contender down to 0. When it comes to how to play, I'm not going to talk about that as much. I'm very not good at talking about how to play. It's never been my strength or my strong suit. There's other people out there that are 100 times better at it than me, so I'll link them down below. I'll also link some other content pieces from other creators down below that have covered the game very briefly and talk about it. So, yeah, number one for Flesh and Blood players, the contender style is really, really cool. You have this hero, this archetype, this deck feel. When you combine that with the affiliations, it's really, really nice. Really, really good for that, and something I really enjoy. The third reason I think that you'll enjoy the game is because of the resource system. So one thing I think that other games had tried, but Flesh and Blood's really perfected, is being able to use a resource system where every card feels like it means something, right? And Alpha Clash does the exact same thing. So as you can see in the top right of this Torque card, the top number, the number 1 that's red and is number 1, is what total resources it costs to play it. So it costs 1. The diamond below is how many specific of a certain color it costs. So for this Torque card, you need 1 red resource. Now, there'll be certain cards where the number will be like a 4 or something of that nature, right? Like if I show it over here really quickly, there's certain cards like this Magnate Unwavering Might card costs 5 to play, but you need 3 specific green resources. So you need 3 green and then 2 of any other resource in order to play the card. The way the resource system in this game works is you take a card from your hand at the start of your turn in your expansion phase, which is like you draw and then you have your expansion, which means you place. It's similar to Dragon Ball Super, where you place a card at the bottom zone, your resource zone, upside down, and now that is now a resource card. So whatever color these cards are, that's the resource that they can generate. So if you have Avenging Guy in your hand and you decide, I don't need to play this card right now, I'll use it as a resource, you can pitch it and put it in your resource zone. Now that will count as 1 green resource, for the rest of the game, or as long as it's in your resource zone and you're able to use it. Right now, from my perspective, I haven't looked at every single card's text, but I haven't seen any cards that generate multiple resources, like with 1 card, and I haven't seen any cards that can be picked up from the resource zone, but I'm assuming they're going to do stuff like that if they haven't already done it. But yeah, the resource system, like, you're never going to get mana screwed. It's a really cool thought process of being able to decide, what card do I not need right now, right? What card can I afford to put down and use as a resource? And then you turn them, engage them, tap them, whatever card name you want to use. It's engaged for their game as resources. Which is really, really good. If you go to the rule book for a second, you can get an idea of what their board game looks like. So their game state looks like. So I really enjoy this. They have different rarities. Obviously, as you can see, you can engage. There's affiliations, things of that nature. If I can find the board state here for a second, I should have put this, but they don't have like a set cutout, so I didn't want to just make it look weird. But in the rule book, you can see here, you have your clash zone, which is a lot where your battling goes, your accessory zone, which is like where your equipment, your traps, all that stuff gets put, your contender, and then down here is your resource zone. So you'll put 1 card upside down, face up, and be able to use that as a resource for the rest of the game. You have clash grounds, which is basically like landmarks or like battle arenas in Pokemon. Or arenas in Yu-Gi-Oh! Also did it. So really, really cool for that. So Contender Hero has a cool deck and feel system. Resource system is really good. The 4th reason is the artwork. I mean, if you haven't already could tell from just me scrolling as I've been aimlessly talking, the artwork in this game is just fantastic. I mean, each color has its own look and feel, has its own style to it. There's multiple styles of even like cultural styles and different stuff in these colors. Like this is green, as you can see, very superhero, very grander looking. Then we saw black, which was very weapons based. If you go to white, which is all about clarity stuff, it's very kind of tribal, which is kind of lends to what she is, and it has a mix of a little bit of everything. And as you can see, the artwork is just fantastic. And that's honestly, to me, if you're a new card game on the market, the one thing that you need to care about the most is, your mechanics. It needs to be easy to understand, which we'll talk about in point 5. Easy to understand. The artwork needs to grab people, and it needs to have some type of background or lore that gets people interested. The lore in this game is fantastic. It's based off a graphic novel, like a comic book. It has the superhero feel, which I won't mention the M word in the superhero, culture, but it has that style feel, and it's just something I really enjoy. So the artwork is just fantastic. I implore you to go to their website, which will be linked down in the description below, and check it out. I think it's something you'll really enjoy. And the 5th and final reason that I enjoy the game is the mechanics. So the mechanics are really good. They work very similar to other card games. They took elements of different card games, obviously, and then also spun it and made their own and made some novel ideas. The one thing I enjoy about this game is, and it's a frustrating point sometimes for newer players, even seasoned players, in Flesh and Blood, is when to play things. How does the stack work? How does priority work? All this stuff. They have the same depth and nuance that other like top card games have when it comes to the stack and passing priority and things of that nature. But they've also extremely simplified it to where a brand new player knows when and where to play things. So if you look at these cards, right? These are just random examples. That was just what I'm on right now. You have trigger enter, which just means it has when it enters the battlefield, it has a triggered effect. So the way the cards work in this game is you play a card, and before it officially comes into play, you pass priority to your opponent. Your opponent has an ability to play a trap card or any type of like card that is allowed in that priority zone. Then it passes to you. Then the card enters play. It's called standby. It goes in standby. You give your opponent a chance to respond, and then you finish resolving your card. But they have triggered abilities on enter, trigger defeat abilities right here. So like when this card is defeated, it has a certain trigger that goes off. They have counterplay. So when someone plays a card, this is a counterplay card that says you may activate this trap if the clash card being played has an initial resource cost of 4 or more. That card enters play engaged. So basically this says like you play this when someone plays a card, right? That's what you do. Counter attack right here. Put 2 street counters on target clash card you control. Remove these cards after this clash. So it's a trap card. So it allows you to, when someone attacks, you can counter during the attack or clash phase or attack phase. It's very simple on when do I play these cards. Because in this game, they have clash cards, which are basically like, for lack of a better term, it's not this simple, but basically they're like creature cards that you use to attack with. You have accessory cards, which are like equipment or buffs or, nerfs, stuff like that. You have trap cards, which is just like it sounds, right? They're like basically like counters to what your opponent's trying to do. Then you have action cards, which allow you to do like different things and stuff of that nature. And then finally you have clash grounds like this at San Francisco, which is basically like only one of these can be on the field at a time for both players. So if I play San Francisco, it comes into the field. If my opponent plays a clash ground, once it resolves, it takes away San Francisco. So they're basically like stadium cards from Pokemon or field cards from Yu-Gi-Oh! And it gives like, game-wide buffs. So it's very, very simple on, what the card is, when it can be played, and what it does. And that's super awesome for new players. And other card games have attempted to be that simple, but the issue is when other card games have been that simple, it also creates like not depth of play. Like there's no nuance to it. And yes, I still need to play a lot of games with this to kind of get how in depth it is. But just from what I've watched and played and messed with on my own, this game has a lot of nuance. And the first set coming out is super awesome. Set comes out July 21st, as you can see up here. Definitely, I implore you to check it out. The last thing I want to talk about, and if you're still watching this, you're awesome, is when it comes to new card games, and this is, me as a creator in card game culture, as small as I am, I still care a lot about like communities and people getting the most of their money. Not everybody has a huge disposable income. Some people really want to, when they buy into something, they want to make sure it's worthwhile. And with new card games, the scary part in TCG culture with Kickstarters and with new card games is A, is it going to last? Is the game have longevity? B, does the dev actually care about the community, or is it a cash grab? Or is it like a mix of both? Like, does the dev have the knowledge and the baseline and the resources in order to make the game last? And it's something that's very difficult. Now, I can tell you right now, I don't have all the answers, and I haven't talked to the devs directly as much as I want to, and hopefully I'll get a chance to. Hopefully we can get one of them on the channel. That'd be really cool. Because I'm starting the discussions with them right now. I have a marketing and social background. I mainly work in esports and gaming. I work for a company called AOE Creative, which is a creative agency that specializes a lot in like nerd culture. And we have clients, some that are super, super resourceful and some that aren't, right? Or we have clients that, have a very clear vision. Some we have to help get that vision. And when it comes to card game culture, I can tell you right now, just by looking at this website and just by looking at what they have in place, if this game is not successful, it will not be because the dev doesn't care or because things didn't happen like they wanted to. They care about this game. You can tell. They have put so much work into it, right? They have a whole page dedicated to character lore already where they introduce you to each character and their background and why they are what they are, right? with like extra nuance. They talk about the affiliations of these characters and like how all of this started, right? They have an entire comic book that talks about the lore, and it's going to keep giving more and more novels, right? Like all of this, like they are setting the scene to do what you need to do to be successful in a card game. Have really solid mechanics, have amazing artwork, have a lore and background that people can identify with and care about, and then have good competitive play. They have all of that, right? They're even having the game hasn't even came out yet, and they have events page for June on people that are doing like learn the plays and like Kickstarter stuff and things of that nature. And they're talking about like what game fairs they're going to, all this stuff. And then they have a whole about section where they talk about like why we made what we made. They introduce you to their team. They're very frontward facing. I implore you, it's blocked by my webcam right now. I already know it's going to be. But down here at the bottom of their website, they have their Discord. Definitely go into their Discord. I highly implore you to do that. Excuse me. Read their full lore book and their rule book that kind of talks about everything to kind of give you an idea. Again, I'm going to link some stuff down below to kind of talk about some different creators that are promoting the game, their thoughts on it, as well as link their YouTube that shows like their how to play and like their gameplays and stuff like that already. Definitely check it out. I highly implore you, join their Discord. Tell them I sent you if you want. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. We're definitely going to do more videos. I'm going to talk about the heroes. I'm going to talk about the affiliations, get more in depth on the lore, talk about the mechanics of the game, some things I like, some things I don't like. Because there's like one or two things in this game where I'm like, I wouldn't have done it that way, but it doesn't make me like not want to play the game. For example, like when you attack an engaged card, like if you attack with your creature onto another engaged creature, I'm just going to use creature as a generic term, in an alpha clash, even if their card is engaged, which means like tapped, it still deals damage back to your card. Or if you attack a contender with their contender, you both get dealt damage. Very interesting thing, but it doesn't make me not want to play it. But I say that to say I'm going to talk about the goods and the bads. But I think this game has some legs. I think this game, in my opinion, is the most well-built game I have played and looked at and researched since Flesh and Blood. And I think that it has a chance to be really, really popular if it's put in front of the right eyes. So we'll talk about rarities. We'll talk about card artwork. We'll talk about all that stuff here in the future. I'm still going to be making Flesh and Blood content. It's not going to change. But this is something I wanted to bring to the channel and something that I think is really important. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time on TC Talk. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great day.